Hello, everybody. It's George from Ireland. Sorry for getting mixed up about which camera thing I was using. This is Requiescat in part shape Prunella scales. So Prunella scales was summoned to the great big studio in the sky just 2 days ago at the age of 83. No, sorry, a second, 93. Yeah. So Prunella, the first Prunella I've ever heard of, and Scales. Never heard of anyone else with that name. Born Prunella Margaret Rumney, West Illingworth. Okay, and her father being an army officer in the First World War, a lieutenant. Now, the real highlight of Mrs. Scales' career is when she addressed whatever was the Cosmopolitan Society at Eton. It's about 30 years ago I saw her speak, and she told us a bit about, trying out for the role of Sybil. And I can't remember that her mum had been an actress and her mum had given up her career when she got married because it was not the done thing for a married middle class woman to still have a career. And there was the whiff of the not quite respectable about acting. So Winston Churchill's daughter Mary, she wanted to be an actress, and he said that was unbecoming to a man of his status. And that being, say, the 1920s, when Prunella's parents got married, her mother gave it up. Prunella, known as Prue, to her friends. Well, is she named in honor of a prune? If there's a Prunella, is there a Pruno? What's the masculine version of it? Perhaps there isn't one. Anyway, so she grew up in Surrey in a comfortably middle class household. Her father, he'd made a bit of money selling cotton and so on. So, and then she was evacuated to Devon in southwestern England during the Second World War. And yeah, she moved around South Britain to Eastbourne on the Channel coast, to the Lake District and so forth. And eventually she trained at the Old Vic Theatre School. Okay, the Old Vic, never Victoria. Old Vic is in London, just close to Waterloo Station. Her school had wanted to go to varsity. This is sort of 1949, when it was how much, like, sort of 2% of the population went to university. Amongst females, about 0.2%. So academically, she was certainly a high flyer. And obviously, one could do both. So she was a stage manager at the Bristol Old Vic, because there's the Old Vic and there's a Young Vic in London. There's a Bristol Old Vic. I'm not sure there are any more Vics like that. Okay, so she acted in Pride and Prejudice and all sorts of things, some of the well-known standard productions. And by the early 1950s, on the West End, if you're not familiar with the United Kingdom, you won't know it's the West End of London, theatre land, and that is where all the most estimable theatres are, equivalent of Broadway in New York City. So perhaps she's best known for playing Sybil in Fawlty Towers. And Fawlty Towers is based on a Scots hotelier, don't remember his real name, who ran some hotel in southwestern England. Was it not? I think not Torquay, where Fawlty Towers is, but close. And he was simply not cut out for the hotel business. In fact, I thought, well, the guests were an intrusion. And John Cleese and the others, when they were filming The Holy Grail in the early 1970s, he'd asked for something like a wake up call, and then the manager who had to do reception duty went, "Oh." And in that moment, the comedy was conceived, and Cleese perceived the inherent comical situation of a failing hotel, because there's a lot of passing trade. There's so many demands this time. There's endless potential for things to go wrong, particularly if she is a captious and ill-tempered person. And then there are misunderstandings because people from Spain, Portugal, Italy, and so on, who couldn't speak much English, were getting the lower paid jobs in the hospitality business, and so on. And there were curmudgeonly old colonel types who were staying there. And that hotel manager hadn't wanted the Monty Python crew to stay, but his wife said, "Come on, this is low season. They're guaranteeing us 3 weeks of rent. We should say yes. Be stupid to say no." He was resentful of them. How dare they intrude in his hotel? How dare they pay to stay here? And if they wanted to drink at lunchtime, he made clear that his strong moral disapprobation, he still served them. I mean, do you want these people to stay in your hotel or not? But anyway, so and the other thing is, this guy was terrified of his wife, and they brought that into Fawlty Towers. And obviously it's a comical name, faulty as in things going wrong, but spelling it with a W in the middle, not a U. And so Sybil, Prunella Scales' character, she it frightens him by occasionally pulling rank and then saying to him very acidly, "Basil," and he'll go, take a step back. He's terrified of her. And to add to the mirth of the situation, he's 6'5" and she's about 5 foot nothing. And they have separate beds. She smokes in bed and all that kind of thing. And they seem to have no children. And one of the things I remember bizarrely, she and John Cleese worked out the backstory before they actually filmed it. It was only a few. It was only a few episodes in 1975, and people didn't know that half a century on, it'd be a cult classic, an absolute smash hit. I think widely appreciated amongst Anglophiles in the United States as well. That he'd been in the army, yes, he'd been in the catering corps, and then he, with his payoff from that, when he was allowed to leave, whatever it was, their golden handshake, he'd set up a hotel. These things were very affordable in the 1950s. And yes, he'd been in the Second World War. He says Korean War, Korean War. That's obviously 1950-53, suggesting he was a bit too young to fight the Second World War. Remember that Germans episode, and I can't remember the rest of it. Okay, so nobody doubted her gifts as an actress, and she was on Desert Island Discs and so on. Some people saw a bit of a national treasure. And what else? She fronted Children in Need and so on, and she took back that role of Sybil Fawlty. So no weak performances from her. She was married to a well-known West End actor, Timothy West, who was on stage and screen. They had two sons. Now Sam West is their son. He also acts and directs, and their other son, I think, is not involved in that. Yeah, a biography was published of her, I think, with a corporation some years ago. So she was a member of the Labour Party, though she never sought public office. She regarded herself as an anti-racist activist. She was a close friend of Neil Kinnock, who was the leader of the Labour Party 1983 to 1992. She appeared in Labour Party broadcasts in 2005 and 2010. Obviously, 2005, the party was riven by controversy over the liberation of Iraq. 2010, under Gordon Brown, it was cruising for a bruising, and her appearance did not manage to save it. So she was your typical Labour lovey, as in, how would people say, so self-regarding, self-indulgent, tick box leftist, a dime a dozen. But well, I suppose she was sincere in that way. So despite being quite well off, so far as I know, she never gave a penny to the needy. But all right, perhaps she was so self-effacing she never let that come out. So that is Prunella Scales. Prue. I mean, having seen her when she's appearing as herself, she came across as very personable, but actresses usually do. I mean, not to up herself, not into method acting or anything ridiculous like that. So that was her, and I'm not sure why she's died yet. Many people missed her. Now, did she suffer? Yes, I think she suffered dementia for the last few years before her death. So she had all sorts of awards heaped on her in her last few years. She'll be sorely missed by many. So I do really recommend that Fawlty Towers, made in 1975. I was able to figure that out because it was just after the United Kingdom had joined the European Economic Community, along with us and the Danes. And like it was, as Harold Wilson was still Prime Minister. Remember, he resigned in March 1976, so I could date it quite precisely. Anyway, thank you for watching my channel. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon. Donate PayPal, georgecallan79@gmail.com. Goodbye.